Now let's look at the exception handling. So I'm going to create a new get mapping. So public. I'm capturing a request parameter here, and it is a status. Now, as part of the return status, what we are going to send it. So I'm going to return whatever the status that we have come as a OK. So response entity dot OK, and we are sending the status. This OK method will take care of this setting the OK as a 200 status like HTTP status OK and the body together. And this is a get mapping. And I'm going to say this endpoint as error. It's just for the testing purposes. If user sends the status as error, then equals status as error, then I would like to return a runtime exception and saying that unknown error. Now let's save it and wait for the server to reload. Reload is completed. Let's create a request. And when I'm sending it, I'm getting bad request because status is a required parameter. I'm adding the status as completed. So I got the 200 response and completed as completed. What happens if I send error? There is a small issue. We are not throwing the exception. So that's the reason it is not responding. So let's save it and wait for the server to reload and then send the request. Now we got an error saying this 500 response status is internal server error, and we got an exception. Who has sent all this information? It's by default, it's been handled at the Spring framework. Instead of creating the runtime exceptions, it's suggested to create our own custom exception, which gives some meaningful. So let's create an exception saying unknown error. Unknown exception. Runtime exception. I created unknown exception. So here we are saying that it's unknown. So let's create a default constructor. And here I'm saying unknown exception. Let's create another exception saying not found. This time let's use exception. Let's add the default serial ID and create constructor. So here we can create user not found or any of our categories. In this scenario, I just created a not found and unknown exception. So we are going to throw these two exceptions and we handle them at the controller. So if user says error, then we are saying unknown error. If user says not found, throw new not found exception and update this one also as unknown. We're getting a compilation error because not found exception is been taken from the exception, so it needs to be part of the method signature. So let's add it to the method signature as it throws. In case of the not found, I would like to return 404 status, not found status. And in case of the unknown exception, I would like to send 500. So in case of the exception handling at the REST endpoints, we can handle them at the method level using the try catch. So here we can catch the exception and set the status as we required, like we set it at the patch or the delete mappings, or we can set at the control level. So we are going to create a common exception handling for and REST endpoint for the whole controller. So let's handle not found exception at the controller level. So public handle not found exception. And here I'm going to return dot status dot not found dot body, and as part of the body I'm sending as not found. How are you going to notify the Spring framework to handle the exceptions which are not found? We are going to use exception handler annotation. And as part of the annotation, we need to pass a set of classes which are extending the throwable ones. In this case, our exception. So here, I'm going to provide not found exception. So let's start the server, and so in this case I'm sending error as error. So we are expecting 500 error. We got the 500, but when I send not found, I'm expecting 404. We got the not found 404 exception. 404 as a response status. And if we send the error, we get internal server error. So if I need to provide more than one exception, how are we going to do it? So it's a simple. So we need to provide an array. So in this case, I am providing, as the unknown also been handled at handle not found, and we are returning not found. So even for the error scenario, we will be getting 404 for this scenario. Now let's take unknown exception out of this class and create another one. In this case, instead of not found, I am sending internal server error and the message saying that I'm setting it as unknown error. Please try after some time. So let's send the request. Now we got internal server as a status, response status, and the message we got is unknown error. Please try after some time. So with this way, we can handle API level exceptions or related exceptions at controller level. What if we need to handle at the whole project level? For example, in this case, it's a unknown exception which can be handled at the global level across all the APIs, means at the project level. Then how are you going to handle it? For that, we need to create a new class. So let's say global exception handling. We need to provide the same method signature. Here also we will be using exception handling annotation and giving the list of exceptions that needs to be covered. And here we need to denote it as controller advice, which means we are saying that the Spring framework to look at the exceptions here across all the APIs or all the resources. And as we are handling at the global level, so we can take out from here. Let's say all the files, server has been reloaded. So let's send as error. Now we are getting it the same response, but this time we are getting from the global. So how do we know it? Let's change the message saying that this one is saying this global, and this controller here we are going to say this one at the controller level. So let's add controller, save all the files and wait for the server to reload. Server has been reloaded. Now let's send the request. We got at the global, and if I send the not found, I would be getting the response from the controller itself. So we are getting from the controller. So this is how we are going to handle the exceptions at the REST endpoints. As part of it, we simulate the exception and we created a custom exception of both the types, runtime and the exception type, and we handle the exceptions at the controller level and global level. And the method level, we know that. How can we do it? Using the try catch, by catching the exception and setting the response status as we require.